Good morning, and now we're very happy to welcome the Reverend Mark Fowler.
Good morning, everyone. First, I'm just going to change this so that I can see you all. Just wanted to change the view. Um, so the first thing that comes to mind that I want to share about that's not in my notes or my script is that in hearing about the possibility of returning to in-person experience, there's something that I think we want to be mindful of. During the last 16 months, however long it's been, we have still been in worship and we've been in communion. We're really only now talking about the physical condition of those two things. And if we're not careful, we could dismiss what God has done over the last 16 months through the pandemic as if being in a physical location was the only way that we could experience worship with God and communion with each other. So, whenever it is that we're able to gather together, let us not forget to celebrate what God has done with and through us during this time, and to be mindful that everyone does not have this precious gift. That over this last bit of time, there have been people who have survived it on their own and didn't have a community to go to. And if we're to be a space of love and understanding, then part of that return is how to make sure that the physical doors and the spiritual doors of wherever we worship and commune are open to more people than ever before. Because we all have some way in which this experience has touched us deeply and has changed us forever. So none of that is in my notes, but I was compelled to share that. And I hope that that is of use. I also just have to stop and thank several friends who I see have signed in. My friend Mary, my friend Pat, my friend Juan, Candace, Enid, Kathy Borey, who is joining us 3 hours behind from Canada. Um, and I'm just trying to see because you don't want to start naming people and leave somebody out. So I think that's everybody. Oh, Melinda. See, I almost forgot somebody. My friend Melinda from many, many years. So I just want to thank you all for being with us this morning. And let me get into this word, which is word. And so we're now talking about word as the focus for this month. And it's a powerful examination that didn't get fully written for me until about 9:45. So there's no reason for me because Joe and Nick have seen this before, where I have been writing things in the car on the way to the church. But this is one of those. And so, as as is common with me, I'd like to start with the gospel according to Merriam and Webster. And when we look, there are a number of definitions there for word. When you look at the dictionary definition as a noun, the thing that you would expect to see, a written or printed character or combination of characters representing a spoken word. And there are any number of other definitions that would be common and akin to this. But there's one in Merriam Webster that defines word as the expressed or manifested mind and will of God. The expressed or manifested mind and will of God. So that's a definition that I'd like for you to keep in mind. And then also to share this with you. So, one of the spiritual records, also known as the Gospel of John, shares the following about the Word. John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." So, for a few minutes, we'll explore these three questions. What is the word that is your beginning? What is the word that is your beginning? How is the word with you now, today? How is word with you? And finally, how are you? Word? How are you in your life and in your comings and goings? Word. So, I like to talk about these things in terms of myths. So, the first myth I'd like for us to explore a little is I know the words that are my beginning. So, taking us back to that quote from John, in the beginning was the word. And there's a complicated paradox here because we're told that the word was present in the beginning. And essentially that that word was the beginning. And then that word was God. So there is this beginning that is word, and that beginning was also God. And we can either look at our beginning as the time when we were born, but there's an opportunity to look at our beginning as word. What are the words of the beginning that are your life? And another way of thinking about this or asking the question is, what are you born from? And how do we get to that? When you tell your life story, what are the words that keep coming up? What are the themes of the words that explain who you are, why you are? And I'm sure that there's a full range of human emotions that come up, but what are the ones that keep coming up? What are the words that are persistent as you tell that life story of how you came to be? And I'm sure that there are words about love and peace and joy and compassion and power, and there are likely some others that may not be as pretty and shiny as the ones that I just said. So I've spoken before about Gary Zukav's words about the earth school and the soul evolution process. The Seat of the Soul is the book. And the first part of that process is the soul first knowing itself and wanting to evolve, desiring to know more of itself. And it chooses a path. to incarnate into so that it may evolve, that the soul chooses a carnate physical way to actually ultimately understand itself more, to evolve, to grow, to expand its own capacity to be soul. And the journey is purposeful. When I read this the first time, I started thinking about, so what if my soul, I as soul, said, I want to be born Black to a man and a woman of somewhat different backgrounds, but who love each other and whose family histories I may know more and less about. There's going to be something about being different. Like I'm purposely coming because there are differences that I will be that will help me expand my capacity to know myself as soul. And that personal internal narration became very different than the story I would usually tell about my life and how I got to be who and what I am. So the invitation is what would be available to you in your relationship to God and in your relationship to this thing called word if you knew that you were a part of the creation process of your life rather than an actor in a set of circumstances that keep happening to you. And knowing that those words that you speak, those actually help you to become clearer about the path that you're walking today, why you're walking it, and what are some of the benefits you can get, you expect, you want your soul to grow from. That's the opportunity in looking at the words that are your beginning and maybe saying some new things that you've never said before. The second myth is this idea that you are word. Ernest Holmes shares with us this quote: my word is the law unto its own manifestation, and will bring to me or cause me to be brought to its fulfillment. I'll read that again. My word is the law unto its own manifestation, and will bring to me or cause me to be brought to its fulfillment. So, another paradox here for us to explore is, are we word or are we tool of word? Are we in service to word? And I think that the answer is it probably is both. But the second question that I asked earlier when we started is, how is the word with you? Some of our practices are built upon the concept that God, word, law are available to us. We speak words that we say are law. We seek to heal and manifest a purposeful, loving, enduring condition of life for ourselves and others. So when we pray, when we speak, when we think of anything, so shall it be. That is how the practice of our engagement with God exists today. But what if I really understood that word, my word, brings me to its fulfillment or causes me to be brought to its fulfillment? And the it is the power of word, and we are that we ourselves are word, not just manipulating word to do something outside of ourselves, but if anything, bringing forth that which is us into the world. So maybe it's not as much of a paradox as we think, and that as I pray, as I speak, as I think, so shall I do and be, and the word manifests itself. When you look at what you call the difficulties of your life, the things that happened that were just like, part of that narrative of like, my soul looks back and wonder how I got over, like that stuff. What did you say before that stuff started? What was your prayer? What were you thinking? And is it possible that there's a correlate between the things you were thinking and praying and saying and those circumstances that you worked through? And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that you brought bad things into your life, because I think that that's too simplistic for what we're talking about. But what there is some perhaps access to, and hopefully some power around, is if I cause it, I can shift it and I can be responsible for the part that I played in the circumstances that I found myself in. Holmes shares another thought with us, which is until we realize that our own word has the power of life, we will not see clearly. And this takes us back to that enunciation from John. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. In God was life. In word was life. You are word. In you is God. In you is life. And I'm just going to say and assert that at some point in your life, you've had the experience where someone said something to you. They spoke word to you, and you were made new by the presence of that word. You were literally given new life. Something happened. There was a state change in the presence of that word that that person spoke to you. And that is who you are. Being word in the world that not just changes you, but changes everyone around you. The third myth, you and word are separate. And it's interesting because I love the song that we sing before meditation of raising the veil. But if we are word and we are word in God, something to consider is that that veil, we could lift it at any time. Or just decide, you know what, I'm not really interested in the veil. I just want to be with God all the time and not have any language that conjures or insists that somehow God is absent or separate from me. In one of the spiritual records, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. So God didn't think, let there be light. God didn't ruminate, let there be light. God said, let there be light. And word creates, spoken word created the rest of what we understand or we talk about creation being. Then with God, then with word, God said further created the condition of the world. And one of the things I don't know that I know I trip myself up around this all the time is that we're not always conscious that we are creating worlds and conditions every day, every hour, every minute, every second with our thoughts, our prayers, and our words. Come in, get out, go away, come closer. I love you. I hate you. You hurt me. I forgive you. Ongoingly, constantly, we are creating worlds and conditions and wondering why people are acting around us the way that they are, as if we had nothing to do with it. We've convinced ourselves that if we didn't create a planet or the cosmos, then we're just trying to get through life and not hurt too many people. And that is the best and highest use of our words. And to try and tie it back in, and I hadn't thought about this till just now, imagine the words and the prayers that were spoken at the times when it became clear we could not physically be together. That we sit now in answered prayer. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. That comes from Proverbs. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it, they that love the power of the tongue, shall eat the fruit thereof. So there's an invitation to love word, to honor word, to be one with word, and to know and be responsible that we are creating worlds all the time, and that we are creating opportunities for our souls, ourselves, and everyone around us to grow. Thank you all so much. It's always a joy to be with you. I love you, and I look forward to being with you in person at some point as well. Much love.